elected officials who are scared to stand up to abuses of power, to corrupt leaders because they are afraid of money being canceled. You got somebody named Tina Peters who was sentenced and sent to prison for voter fraud, and they've been trying to get her out, and now you got a Democratic governor who possibly is going to pardon her because he can't stand the heat. You cannot fight fascism when you have weak folks in political office who have no guts and courage. You're dealing right now in this state. I'm born here. My parents are born in this state. My grandparents came from Opelousas, Louisiana. And then you have governor and a lieutenant governor and an out-of-control legislature that's passing laws that are so nonsensical that they make, of course, the Congress during Jim Crow days look like children. They're attacking public universities, preventing professors from teaching what is right and what is proper. All these things are happening, and I'm stunned when I'm watching folks who are silent, who are saying nothing, even when they are graduates of the institution. I had a professor from Texas A&M on the show the other day, and many of my fellow Aggies are happy and excited about our football team, and I make it perfectly clear. I don't want to hear Greg Abbott or Dan Patrick or any other Republican talk about DEI because they don't mind DEI Saturdays. What we are dealing with are folks who literally, if you step back and realize what's going on, are trying to attack the entire infrastructure of Black America. Shortly after they took over, Cancer Alley in Louisiana, largely African Americans, suing the petrochemical companies, this administration pulled back from that lawsuit, calling it DEI. Black people, Lowndes County, Alabama, sewage backing up into their houses, into their backyards, because they did not have proper pipes put in the last 30 years. The Biden-Harris administration brokered a settlement. This administration overturned that settlement. You've got billions of grants being cut when it comes to health, mental health, Black maternal health, all of these different things. And too many of us are being silent as it's happening. Too many of us are saying, well, no, I don't want to say nothing because they might come after me. Well, guess what? They might come after you anyway. So at some point, I'd appreciate if you stand up and show some courage. Because, see, we can't sit here at an MLK event and watch what is happening and say we love and appreciate him if you are unwilling to do what he would do. And so I know it's going to be all around the country on Monday. They're going to have these day of service events. And let me be perfectly clear. Ain't nobody got a picture or a photo of Dr. King at a shelter passing out food doing stuff. If King was alive and he would have turned 97 on Thursday, I can guarantee you Monday would not be a day of service. It would be a day of protest. I can tell you he will be challenging ICE, challenging Border Patrol. He'll be challenging HUD, challenging Commerce Department, challenging DOJ. So don't tell me you love and appreciate the work of Dr. King if you are unwilling to actually do his work in 2026. If you're going to have a slogan with awake in it, that requires you to actually be awake. But see, I don't want you just to be awake. I need you to have a plan of action after you've woken up. Because what we have to recognize is this nation will not go back to what it used to be. And I have been talking about this since 2009. I was at CNN in 2009, and John Avlon, who's down in Congress, were going on the air, and we were off air, and I said, John, you know we are living in the beginning stages of white minority resistance. And he said, Roland, what are you talking about? He said, white Americans, the majority of this country. I said, no, John, it's about to happen. And that's the basis of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. And see, you have to understand why I was framing that way. That was a study that was done. A poll that was done shortly was around the inauguration, 2009. And the question was asked, are you optimistic about the future of America for your children? Black folks, more than the majority said yes. Latinos, more than the majority said yes. Asian Americans, more than the majority said yes. White Americans, less than the majority. And I saw that, and I began to look deeper. And see, part of the issue is too many of us, we ain't deeper than mustard on a hot dog. We see that and keep moving. You fast forward 7 years, 2007 to September 2016, another survey was done. The question was asked, are you optimistic about the future of America economically for the next 10 years? Black people, lowest wealth, highest optimism. Latinos, second lowest wealth, second highest optimism. White Americans, highest wealth, lowest optimism. When you read that, saying, hold up, how can, on average, white Americans have more than any other, than African-American Latinos, but you're the lowest optimism? Because they were seeing what was happening before our very eyes. That we were moving to a nation where you would have more people of color making a majority of this country than white Americans. See, there's no coincidence if you look at Twitter and Elon Musk is constantly tweeting about fertility rates. See, some of y'all are like, well, why does he keep focused on fertility rates? Well, because around 2010, there were 10 states where the average white death rate was higher than the average white birth rate. Now you understand why they are attacking undocumented workers the way they are. This is about maintaining whiteness. Y'all, it's sitting before our very eyes. Okay, some of y'all, no, we ain't gonna clap on that. Some of y'all, I don't know about that. Okay, no, that's fine. Because you about to get also a history lesson. Why are they complaining about immigration in Europe? Ireland, Germany, Italy, England, all European countries. Why all of a sudden do you see a rise in far right in Europe? Because it's the exact same thing happening here. Well, look at the birth rates. The reason Germany's economy has been stable for the last 20 years is because of immigration. Okay, anybody here, if you understand money, you cannot maintain a nation's gross domestic product, your GDP, in the next 20 years if you don't have people. Fewer people, lower GDP. More people, higher GDP. Okay, ask China. More than 30 years. Mayor, you were trade ambassador. Remember when China had their one-child rule? Now, this shows you some smart folks in China. They were not this smart. They had a one-drop rule. They had a one-child rule. You're going to have one kid. They said, we got too many people. They didn't do the action rate charts. Because 30 years later, they said, oh, damn, we do not have enough people. They changed the law. They said, hold up, we need y'all to have at least two. Because you could not replace the folks who were passing away. There was a point 15, 20 years ago, America was freaking out. Oh my God, China's going to surpass us as the world's largest economy, and Americans were going crazy. Today, America, $30 trillion GDP, China, $19 trillion GDP. So what I'm saying to you is, what you're seeing right now is a massive white backlash because folk want to maintain power and control. You see the attacks on affirmative action in colleges. You see the attacks on contracts. Donald Trump has literally said to a federal judge, his administration, they want to get rid of the federal DBE program. $700 billion in contracts that go to individuals in this country. $37 billion of that money actually is of the DBE portion, and they say, okay, that's too much going to those folks. Now, first of all, black folks only getting $10 billion of the money, and which is 2% of the whole total. But the point there is, folk are fearful of what's happening. And so the anti-DEI attacks are going on. Because in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, they saw this transition happening before our very eyes. The BLM protest, you may not realize, was the first time in American history a black-centered movement had ever garnered a majority of American support for it. And there were forces in America that said, no, we can't have that. And so 2021, we got to attack BLM. 2022 is critical race theory. Now, let me tell you how crazy that was. I have worked at 13 different black-owned media companies. You do not get blacker than me. I had never in my life heard of CRT. So I know none of y'all heard of CRT unless you went to law school. But Christopher Rufo, Manhattan Institute, said if we can group everything racial under one umbrella, then we can attack it. CRT in 2022. They attacked woke in 2023. They attacked DEI in 2024. So the whole focus is, how can we now slow this down and begin to hold on to power as much as we can? You got a Supreme Court case that's going to be decided very soon called Louisiana versus Cali. Now here's what's crazy. They beat them in the courts, took it to the Supreme Court, went back to Supreme Court, still won. Then Louisiana said, well, let's come up with another way. So let's actually sue the black districts, saying that this discriminates against these two whites who are living in the district. Now, they never established how they were hurt and harmed by having a second black district when Louisiana is 1/3 black. Now, here's what's crazy. Based upon the questions, they are likely going to vote in their favor. You are going to see 1/3 of the Congressional Black Caucus disappear. You are going to see state reps, state senators, county commissioners, city council members, school board members all across the South wiped out because of this one Supreme Court decision. If you literally look at what's happening right now with the Supreme Court today, you can compare it to the Supreme Court in the late 1800s. If you look at the actions in Congress, you can compare it then to what is happening now. And so if you now completely undermine the entire civil rights and economic rights infrastructure, then you then are defunding black America. And that is what is happening before our very eyes. And so in 2026, this cannot be the usual MLK program. This can't be the usual MLK weekend. This can't be the usual time, because what we are facing right now are evil forces who are attacking every single system that exists. And let me also be perfectly clear, when they're attacking what's happening with black folks. When you hear them talk about affirmative action, I often have to remind them that there's no group in America who's benefited more than affirmative action than white women. And let me be real clear. I've read Project 2025, and I've said to many of my white sisters, you know they won't want you to stay at home, birth babies, not work, and get in the kitchen. I said, so trust me, when they're coming after us, they're coming after you too. We have to understand that this is not a drill.